So, welcome back to another video on the channel today. Now, I've left it a bit of time before making this video, making sure I got over the summer's heartbreak and also so I could see what everyone was doing in terms of transfer. But I've left it as late as I can, and now it is finally time to make my championship final table predictions. So, starting off with the relegation candidates, and to start with, it is a team that I think will finish bottom of the league. It is Oxford United. Now, despite having a good end to last season and also signing some key players like Louis Sibley, who was highly regarded amongst Derby County supporters, and to get him on a free was a fantastic bit of business. They've also signed Peter Chiozzo from relegated Rotherham, but they've lost Jacob Murphy to fellow relegation rivals Portsmouth, and they haven't really replaced him, and they haven't really signed a star striker, which is, in my opinion, the area that they needed to improve on the most. So I don't think they're going to have enough this year. I think they're going to put up a valiant effort, but I think it will be last place for Oxford. Next up, it is 23rd place, and I think it will be Plymouth Argyle. Obviously, they've just appointed Wayne Rooney, who is coming off the back of a terrible time at Birmingham. And they haven't really strengthened much as of yet. Obviously, there's still a bit of time left in this window. And the sale of Whittaker to Rangers is looking more and more likely every single day, and it will be interesting to see how they use that money that could potentially keep them up if they use it properly, but could also see them down, because without his impact, and if they don't replace him properly, they could be in a lot of trouble. So the final team that I think will be going down is Millwall. They haven't made many signings this year, bringing in a once Tottenham prospect, Japhet Tanganga, who not so long ago was looking like a very good player, and they've also signed an unproven Macaulay Langstaff at this level. Obviously, he's had a good couple of seasons at Notts County with that record-breaking National League season and carrying it over to become the League Two's top scorer, but I don't know if he'll be able to make the step up. It's a very big gamble, and it one that could potentially pay off and see them, in my opinion, survive, but I don't think it will. I think that will be the reason that they do drop into League One. They haven't lost many players, and obviously they were a team that stayed up last year. But with the league looking a bit stronger, I just don't think they're going to quite have enough. So the first team that I think will be just about surviving is my team, Portsmouth. Now, there's a lot of hype going around us this year, especially after the season we had last time around, but we haven't strengthened at all. We've lost a couple of key players, the likes of Rafferty, Morel. Kamara has gone back to Norwich after a very successful loan. We have made a couple of signings, not any standout signings, and we've also lost Colby Bishop to a potential heart. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but I know that there was a routine scan on his heart and he's now been put into surgery. He could come back, but he did score 20 goals last season, and we could potentially be losing that for a long period of time. But as I was saying, we have signed some players. Jordan Williams from Barnsley, he was highly rated down there, and he could potentially come in and replace Joe Rafferty. We've also signed Sam Silvera on loan as a winger, and Josh Murphy, obviously on a free from Oxford, as another winger. So we've got options out there. But we've also signed a hotly tipped young Jacob Farrell from Central Coast Mariners. He comes in as a left back. And the thing with these players who aren't really proven in English football, it will always be interesting to see how they adapt. Obviously, we did lose Jack Sparks. We sold him to Peterborough. And it'll be interesting to see if he comes in as a number one, or he will sit behind Connor Ogilvie. But I just think unless we bring in some real star power in that midfield, we could be looking for a very tough season. Now on to 20th place. I think this will be Blackburn. Now they lost Sam Gallagher already and could potentially be looking like Schmodix is going to Ipswich. Now they're going to get a lot of money for him because he's a fantastic player. He was a top goal scorer in the league last year. He single-handedly kept them up. But without the goals of Gallagher and Schmodix, are they going to be able to survive? I think they will, because I think they're going to use the money properly. But they've spent big money already on two strikers that I think would be the replacement for Schmodix and Gallagher. I think they're going to use the Schmodix money elsewhere to strengthen. But they are unproven in English football, so they could either kick on and have fantastic seasons, or they could struggle big time. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think if they do come off those two strikers, they could be finishing in and around the mid-table area, but if they don't come off, they could be dropping into the relegation zones. So one to look out for is Blackburn. Over to 19th place now. I think this is going to be Sheffield Wednesday. Would be a slight, be similar to how they finished off last season. I think for them, they'll be looking to not get involved as much in that relegation scrap. They'll be looking to have a bit of a gap, but I don't think they will. They've made some much needed improvements, a lot of sensible transfers. Jamal Lowe obviously on a free from Bournemouth. He has played in the Championship for a number of years now. He's a little bit hit and miss. Obviously he had a really good time at Wigan. He was good at Swansea. It wasn't that great at Bournemouth. He was okay when he came back to Swansea. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on at Sheffield Wednesday. And they also got Trevor Chalobah in from West Brom, who looks like he's going to be a good player for them. Obviously, he's been good over the couple of years at West Brom, but a lot of turnover at that club means that they could have a slow start. And will that see them get dragged into the relegation battle? I will be interesting to find out. Over to 18th place, where I think this will be Derby County. Now, despite having a lot of Championship experience in that squad, as they were only in the Championship a couple of years ago, and at that point a lot of their players were very, very young, but they've lost players such as Louis Sibley to fellow relegation rivals Oxford, and Conor Hurricane, who was very good for them last season. But they have bought some key players in, such as Adams and Goodman, that will surely strengthen their squad, and I think they will be safe by about March time. So I think it'll be a decent season for Derby County. Over to 17th spot now. I think this is going to be Queen's Park Rangers. They brought in Zansella, who looks like he's going to be a good player for them, but they have lost the likes of Sinclair Armstrong and Chris Willock, who are going to be massive losses for them, especially losing Chris Willock on a free transfer is never good for them. Be interesting to see how they look to replace those players, as they're going to need to do a lot of business if they want to really clear themselves of the relegation scrap. But I think they are going to have a better season for QPR, as they definitely did finish off that last season in some good form. So over to Swansea now, who have brought in some good players, the likes of Franco. He's going to make a massive difference to them this season, but they have lost young defender Nathan Wood, who was a really bright spark for them, so it'll be interesting to see how they go about replacing him. But for Swansea, they're always sort of a mid-table club. They're never really in much danger. Sometimes they push on to the playoffs like they did a couple of years ago, but they've always sort of been a solid Championship side. Well, they have done over the last 5 years or so. At one point they were a Premier League team, but I think they're going to have a solid season in the middle of the table. So now on to their South Wales derby rivals, Cardiff. Now I think they're going to be, well, they're a very similar side to Swansea. They can have the odd good season where they go up into the playoffs, but for the majority of their existence they are a mid-table Championship side. They brought in Callum Chambers and Chris Willock. I mean, they're good players. They're proven at this level. Callum Chambers obviously has played higher up, and he's going to bring that experience to Cardiff. Chris Willock was very hotly tipped at QPR, and he was a bright spark for them. But he's a player who's familiar with the league, and will be interesting to see how he copes in this Cardiff side. They have lost certain players like Wilfred Kanga and Ebu Adams, who were good players for them, but they got a bit of money for them, so it'll be interesting to see how they go about reinvesting that. But I think Cardiff will have a very solid season in the middle table. On to 14th now, I've got Stoke City here, where they have not done much business. They haven't really lost anyone. They've bought in Gallagher and Boku, who they look like they're going to be good. But in my opinion, Stoke are going to be have a very boring season. I don't know how they're going to feel about this, but I just don't look at their team and think that they are going to be challenging right up there. They're going to be in okay. They're not going to be in any danger of going down, but I don't think they're going to be making a push for the playoffs. So I've got Stoke in 14th. Now over to Preston now, who I think are going to finish 13th. All these mid-table clubs, they could finish anywhere from 10th to 18th really. They're all sort of there or thereabouts. They're all solid Championship sides that don't really tend to do a lot. They might have a little playoff push at some point in about once in 5 years, but for the majority of the time they are these mid-table clubs. Preston, they've done a little bit of business, but they haven't really made any marquee signings. They've got Sam Greenwood on loan from Leeds, and they haven't really lost anyone, so they've only got better. However, as I say, the league has got a lot better this season, and it's very, very strong, especially when you get up into that top 8. Now over to Bristol City, that have already spent pretty big on a couple of young strikers, the likes of Armstrong and Mayulu. They look like they're going to be decent players for them. It'll be interesting to see how at a young age they're going to kick on throughout the season, but they're players that are only going to get better. So I think it's a very smart bit of business from Bristol City, and it's clear to see that they have got a way of going about doing things this year. Bringing in young talent is, we've seen it work successfully in the past, and I think for Bristol City it is definitely a good model to go down. But I think they're going to just finish 12th, which is another good average season for them. Over to Middlesbrough, who they had a really good start under Darren Fletcher, but last season was a little bit, well, it was average. It was average at best. I think they're going to have another average season. All these sort of clubs, as I say, they just tend to have one good season every 5 years where they kick on. I think all the stars aligned for Middlesbrough that season, and if that was going to be the year they were going to get up, it had to be that time around. They had obviously the likes of Chuba Akpom, who was a very bright spark. And I'm not saying you're going to be able to replace him because he's one of those championship players that just come along every now and again. But they haven't really built a squad off the back of him going. And as I said, they bought in Morris and they bought in Luke Ayling. Obviously, at one point, he was a very solid fullback for Leeds in the Premier League. But they haven't really lost anyone, so that's a good thing for them. But as I say, it's not been a fantastic window as of yet, and I think they're going to finish in 11th spot. Now, in 10th spot, it is going to be West Brom, who have had quite a busy window so far. They've bought quite well, and also they've sold a couple of players off. Like I say, Chalobah going on a free. They've bought in Hegem and Diakate, who look like they're going to be decent players for them. And mid-table again for West Brom. This side has the potential to push on into the playoffs, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do take up one of the playoff spots. But I just think there are 9 teams that in this league are better than them on paper right now. But as I say, football isn't played on paper, so we will see how this progresses throughout the rest of the season. But I think West Brom will finish 10th. So now on to a team that I think will be pretty disappointed with where I've predicted them to be. Hull City. They haven't had the greatest starts to a window. They've obviously lost Jaden Philogene and Greaves and Tufan. But they have brought Giles back in on a permanent. So he's going to be a player that they wouldn't have expected to have at the start of the season. He was a very solid fullback for them. But I think the amount of players that they've lost, the quality of the players that they've lost. Jaden Philogene was one of their brightest sparks last season. And Ozan Tufan, he always had that bit about him, especially towards the start of the season. I think they're players that you can't really replace at this level. Perhaps they could use the money to make a stronger squad overall, but I think Hull have lost out on some real key star power if they wanted to push on into the playoffs. So I think 9th place is about right for Hull. So it is the Black Cats of Sunderland that I think are going to come in 8th place. They haven't really lost anyone yet, and they've brought in a couple of players. Brown and Poveda are their big marquee signings so far. And I think they underperformed last year. We've seen what this side can do in the past. They're definitely better than what they showed last year. I think Sunderland are going to have a better season, but they are going to just miss out on the playoffs. Now, the side that I think are going to be just missing out on the playoffs is Norwich. Now, despite having a really good end to last season, I think they are going to lose a couple of players. Whilst they haven't lost any massive names just yet, I think they could be about to lose a few, as that back end of the season really showed the quality of the players such as Gabriel Sara, and I would be shocked if he stayed for another season. So I think Norwich are going to finish in 7th. On to 6th place. They've brought in some really good players. I've got Coventry in there. Rodoni, who was a part of the Huddersfield side that did get relegated, but he was a very good player in that side. They brought in Binks and Dovin, but they have lost a couple of players, Liam Kelly and O'Hare, who were good players for Coventry and a massive part of that side a couple of years ago that did get to the playoff final. But I think that they're going to just about have enough to get into the playoffs, but I think they're probably going to lose in the playoff semi-finals. They're a good side. If they get a streak together, this side are capable of doing great things. We saw that in the FA Cup last season when they took Man United to penalties and were about an inch away from getting into the FA Cup final. So I think Coventry could have a really good season. I've got them in 6th, making the playoffs. I think that'll be a very good year for Coventry. Now over to Tom Cleverley's Watford, who had a really good end to the season last time around. Now they have lost Kone, but they've brought Sissoko back in. They brought in a couple of loans, and I expect them to make another couple of signings. But from what I saw last year, they look like they're going to be a really good side this year. I would be shocked if Tom Cleverley kept his job after this, though, knowing Watford's track record. I think that they're going to have a good season. I think they're going to finish in the playoffs. I do think they're going to miss out on promotion, though. Now, over to Luton now, who I think are going to finish in 4th place. They've been a bit quiet in the transfer window so far. Walters and Baptiste have been their only real headline signings, and obviously losing Ross Barkley, who was absolutely crucial for them last season. A fantastic player who really rolled back the years for them and earned himself a fantastic move to Aston Villa. And they've also lost Osho, who again, good solid player for them. I expect them to do more, but they have kept the spine of their squad from that last season, so I do think they're going to be up there fighting for promotion. They could potentially go straight back up, but I think Luton are going to just miss out on the automatic promotion spots. Now, the final team that I think are going to miss out on automatic promotions is Burnley. Now, they have done quite a bit of business, to be fair to them. They've bought in Trezeguet. Well, they've made it a permanent deal now after having him on loan last year. Spent quite a lot of money on him. And they've also bought in Estunde, Handudic, who I'm not really too familiar with these sorts of players, so I can't really count on them, but they spent a lot of money on them, so I'd assume that they are decent players. They obviously had a swap deal for Hladky coming in and Muric going out, so they've obviously downgraded on the goalkeeper department, but they made a bit of money on that deal. Muric was a fantastic goalkeeper for them last year, but they've also kept James Trafford around, so he's going to become a regular, and he'll definitely be one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship next season. So there is a high potential for this Burnley squad to go straight back up. But change to the manager, I'm not sure what to expect from him, so I've sort of been a bit cautious with this prediction. As if they still had Vincent Kompany in the Championship, I'd have predicted him to win the league again because his style of football definitely suited Championship level. But let's be honest, their Championship side a couple of years ago was much better than the one they have now. So I've got Burnley finishing in third. Now, the team that I think are going to get promoted automatically but just miss out on the title is Sheffield United. Now, they always seem to finish in second whenever they go down from the Premier League or when they first went up into the Premier League. Second place is a very Sheffield United position to finish in. And they've done quite a bit of business. Harrison Burrows from Peterborough, a very hotly tipped fullback, young lad. Fantastic whenever I've seen him down at Fratton Park. He's definitely got that bit about him. I think he won the Player of the Season last year in League One and narrowly missed out in the playoffs to Oxford for Peterborough in the semi-finals there. They've done a lot of business in the free transfer market. O'Hare from Coventry, got in Shackleton from Leeds and McCallum from Norwich. Although they have lost a couple of players. Cameron Archer was a fantastic striker for them. Bogle's gone and so has Traore. So a couple of ins, a couple of outs. They've done a lot of business. They've been very busy so far, Sheffield United, and it'll be interesting to see how they carry on things. Now, in first place, I have got Leeds, but this all depends on Somerville. He is very heavily linked with a move away. They've already lost. Now, in first place, I have got Leeds, who have already lost Archie Gray, and if they do lose Somerville, this could change my prediction. But as of right now, they still have him, so I am going to predict them to win the league. Somerville, if he kicks on, he can change the whole scape of this top four. He's a fantastic player who's got that bit of flair and a bit of skill, who can really win matches for Leeds. And we saw that last year. I think he's going to kick on a little bit more this time around, if obviously he does stay. They made a couple of signings, Roden and Bogle, who, they're good players. They are going to be additions to the squad, but obviously if they lose Somerville, they're going to get a lot of money from that. They've also already got a lot of money from Archie Gray that they can use elsewhere. So I'm surprised at the lack of business done by Leeds so far. But if they could lose Somerville in the next week or so, that'd be very helpful. And then if they could replace him a week after that, that would be fantastic, as we have got them first game of the season. But as I say, as of right now, I think Leeds will win the league, but this could all change in the coming weeks or the coming days as of right now. But that is all for my predictions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Anything you think I did right, if I did your team dirty, do let me know. But make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.